why, what is the premises? Of course, there's a lot of people. 30s and 40s, things like that. So that's what it's about. And I'm not here to advocate for fire. What I'm here to do is advocate for some of the tenets of fire, because while most people can't achieve this super early retirement, many people wouldn't want to do it anyway, because it's like, well, what are you going to do for decades, for the rest of your life? It's just extremely hard. But the steps that folks take to get there are what are important to all of us that want to retire comfortably. We just don't have to go as extreme as they go. So that's a little bit about what I want to talk about today. So let me start. What does it take? Again, I've said this, but it's about accumulating a lot of money in a short period of time. Some of the savings rate are as high as 75%. So it really does take a lot. I mean, think about putting away 75% of your money for savings. For one, you probably have to have a pretty good income. But number two, you really have to cut back on your spending, right? Seemingly in an incredible way. But still, if the average person can just put 15 to 20, 25% of their savings away, they're really going to have a great retirement and have a lot more control at an earlier age and can dictate when they might retire. So what I want to talk about, a couple of examples here. What does it take, when I look at somebody who is 40 compared to 70, and why I would call this very extreme and how you have to look at it. So when you have somebody who is, I'll start with the 70-year-old, their life expectancy is a lot shorter, right? I mean, if you're 70 years old, you're getting closer to 100 if that's how long the average age is, which will be before you know it. So you have a lot less years that you have to worry about financing. Conversely, if I take a 40-year-old, a 40-year-old has to really finance decades of their retirement, okay? Another aspect of it is healthcare, specifically Medicare. Once you hit 65, you get Medicare, and you have a lot more consistency, at least, in how healthcare is paid for and taken care of. If you're 40 years old, you have a long way to go to get the Medicare, so that is going to hold you back as well. And then the other main one, I would say, is Social Security. And Social Security, you can start taking at 62, regular Social Security, and it will grow and be more for you every year until the age of 70. And at that point, it doesn't make sense for you to take it, any later than that. But only 2% of people wait that long. So that in itself is a problem, but that's what I'm trying to get at, to get people to be thinking about these things. And really, when you think about retiring, the difference between a 40 and a 70-year-old, 40-year-old needing to fund a lot more, what you're doing basically is looking at what your expenses are, what type of income you have to take care of that, and then after that, you're going to have to cut into savings, right? And so that is a lot of savings that you're going to have. And so to do that at such an early age, you really got to, just pile this huge amount of money. Another example at the other end, what I worry about is people who have virtually nothing. There is a group out there of retired folks who use Social Security for about 90%. It is 90% or plus of their income. 21% of married couples rely on Social Security as 90% of their income. And then the other side, the single people, it's up to 43%. So think about that. 43% of people rely for the most part on Social Security. And that is not where you want to be. That is really going to be restricting your life. So if you want to move to another country, actually, it will go a long way. But for the most part, if you want to live here and maintain your lifestyle, you're going to have some savings in there as well. So that's a little bit about the difference between a 40 and a 70-year-old. But here are the areas where the people in the FIRE community focus on. I mean, these are, when you look at these expenses that I've written down here, these are the main ones for all of us, okay? Let me start with housing, for instance. Come across a lot of people that really want to build a huge house, and they don't realize how much of an effect it is having on their savings. So rule of thumb usually should be about 30% of your budget should go there. We follow Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey is more like 25%, but hopefully you could do even less than that and do better. Some of the people in the fire community, a couple of the examples that I've seen, for instance, they might buy a duplex, right, and then just have somebody rent out the other half and pay for their mortgage, so they don't even have a mortgage. Some of the real extreme ones are buying a house, living in a room and using the kitchen, but renting the rest out to a family and things like that. So those are really extreme, right? That's not what most of us are comfortable doing. But what is important is to be cognizant of how much of an impact on your savings spending money on housing can have. The second one I have is transportation, which is another big one. And I think, one of the biggest ongoing mistakes people make, because, we're now getting to the point, I think, where the average car loan is actually it's almost 7 years. It's more than 6, it's almost 7. And the average car costs $33,000. So people are really strapping themselves when they purchase a vehicle. And so to that end, I would say, try to buy something that's a couple years old, and try to have the mentality that you are going to run that car into the ground until it's no longer cost efficient for you. And if you could do that, that really helps out in your savings. So another area is debt. This is really what I think restricts a lot of younger people from being able to even do this if they want, because by the time they start to think about these things and become cognizant of what they need to do to really get ahead, they've already incurred a lot of debt. Could be student loan, could be from the car, could be from credit cards, right? And so if you're going to think about being in the fire community, you have to get rid of your debt. Those are like the first 3 steps. And what credit cards being one, automobiles being a second one, and student loan being another one. You can't retire with debt, not comfortably. And so you have to do what you can to get rid of that. That's important. But of course, before even doing that, focus on not incurring debt. If you can do that, you'll be much better off in the long run. Food, it isn't so much, right? We all need to eat 3 meals a day and then some, but it's about how we're going about doing it. So few people eat all their meals at home these days, and that can really save a lot of money. But it's hard to do, right? We're running all over, we're busy, and so it's a lot easier just to eat out instead of putting in the effort to plan for meals. But even if you can cut back a little bit, you would really find a lot of savings there. And the extreme I saw was somebody who was spending about $2 a day a meal for each person in her family. And I think there was like 2 kids, so 4 people. So $8 a meal, $25 a day. That's an extreme, right? But if you can do that in the long run, it's going to go a long way. Clothing, just do the best you can. I know a lot of people aren't comfortable buying at a thrift store. There's a lot of great purchases there, but just try to get what you can. You don't have to buy a new outfit every week, just to support looking good. You'll look good, so don't worry about that. So anyway, shifting gears a little bit, the last thing I have here on savings is I talked about the extreme savings rate might be like 75%, which is, who can get to that? But what we can do better on, as I come forward here, is the savings rates of America. Now, this is only over the last year, but you can see the lowest here is 6.2%, and the highest is about 7.7%. And the thing about it is, that's the average, right? And so many people are way above that, and many people are at 0. So to be able to function and to get to this comfortable retirement, you're going to steadily have to increase your savings rate. So what I encourage people to do is, as they always, we've heard this for decades, right? Pay yourself first, meaning put that money in retirement savings and then learn to live off the rest. And steadily, as you get raises or make more money, you're focused on putting more in savings and not spending more on your social life. And so that way, you're just going to continue to get more and more comfortable. But this is the average. It is not what people should be shooting for. You should be shooting for 10, at a minimum, 15, 20%. If you could do that, you will have a good, comfortable retirement, okay? So that's a little bit about the savings rate and all the things I think you need to do, to put yourself in a good position. I will come back to those of you who are interested in thinking about, FIRE and what that's about. And by the way, there are a lot of resources. If you just Google, FIRE, Financial Independence, Retire Early, you will see a lot of blogs. Mr. Mustache is somebody who's written a lot about it. He's been on PBS and a lot of other shows, and that's where I get a lot of this information from. But it's a big community, and they will give you guidance on how you could do these things to cut back on your savings. What I do caution people, though, as you look into this, this is a newer movement. As I said, it has its origins from 1992, but it's really been the last 10 years that it's really taken hold. And 10 years ago, what was that? That was a big financial downturn. And so a lot of people that have retired really early, number one, they don't know what it's like for them, right? I mean, a lot of people find their identities in work and things like that, but now they don't have that. So they really have to figure out, what their identity is going to be. So it's probably always helpful to kind of ease into retirement and not do it all at once, especially the younger you are. The other one is, I worry about this for folks, right? We've had a very good stock market run since the downturn in 08 and 09. A lot of these people had a lot less money saved at that point, and now they've got this huge nest egg, and they haven't seen a downturn in the market. So what is that going to do to their savings and really their emotion? Because when it comes to investing, emotion is probably the biggest thing that gets in individual investors' way. So they're going to want to, really do the best they can to not use the money when we have a downturn, and it can happen, sometime in the future it will. What position will they be in at that time? So anyway, I hope that helps a little bit. Like I said, there's a lot of information out there. I want to stress this wasn't about advocating for FIRE, which I think is very difficult to do. But if no matter where you are in your life, you could go back on these things and do a better job for yourself. So anyway, I want to thank you for tuning in. Have a great weekend. Happy Easter to everybody. Good Friday. And we'll see you next week. Take care.